Thank you very much. I pray be seated. Thank you. By way of salutations tonight, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, His Excellency the President of E.D. Mnangagwa, the Vice President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Retired General Dr. C.G.D.N. Chiwenga. I salute and acknowledge these in absentia. The Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Justice L. Matanda Moyo. The Chief Justice, Honorable Justice L. Malaba, represented here by the Judge President, Honorable Justice M. Dube. The Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziyambi Ziyambi. The Minister of State for Provincial Affairs, Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable O. Chidao. Cabinet Ministers here present. Your Excellencies here present. From Africa, Europe, Americas, the Americas, Australasia, whichever continent in this world that you're here, we appreciate and acknowledge each one of you. Thank you for coming. Members of the Diplomatic Corps here present, UNDP Resident Coordinator, heads of international organizations, EU Ambassador, representatives from African Development Bank, honorable members of Parliament here present, the Commissioner General of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, Commissioner General T.G. Matanga. I would say in absentia, he's an easy man to see. Senior government officials here present, heads of parastatals, representatives from private sector and civil society, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is my pleasure tonight, Your Excellencies, to be your Master of Ceremonies this evening. My name is Maimba Mapuranga, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies. Without much further ado, allow me to go straight into our program and ask the Minister of State for Harare Metropolitan Province to come through and give us the welcome remarks. Shall we give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? I know we can do better. I know we can do better. I know we can do better.
The Director of Ceremonies, Mr. Mapuranga. Thank you. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa in absentia, the Honorable Vice President and Minister of Health and Child Care, General Retired Dr. C.G. D.N. Chwenga in absentia, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziambe Ziambe in absentia, the Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Justice Lois Matanda Moyo, Excellencies, ambassadors here present, senior government officials here present, and all protocol as observed by the Director of Ceremonies, the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to Harare Metropolitan Province for this inaugural dinner of the African Anti-Corruption Day, hosted by the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. May I also take this opportunity to extend a special welcome to our guest. He is not here as yet. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Comrade Dr. Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. I would like also to welcome all the ambassadors representing various countries here present. Welcome. We are looking forward to the addresses this evening that we believe will educate us on the strides that the African continent has made in fighting the scourge of corruption. Without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, allow me once again to welcome you all to Harare Metropolitan Province for this important occasion. I thank you.
Another big round of applause. Another big round of applause, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. So after I had had a few conversations with you before and had apologized for starting late, I then went to the holding room where I found Vacharamba was sitting in there and with the chairperson was in there. And I said to them, look, why don't we just eat? You know, we can just eat, right? And they were like, but we have to wait for the guest of honor. And I said, but come on, guys, surely we can eat, right? So, but the powers invested in me as your master of ceremonies tonight. Let's eat. You guys agree with me? Shall we eat? Let's eat. Let's eat. It's been a long day. So what's going to happen now is we've got serving points through there and we've got serving points through there, right? But don't worry. At some point, I mean, I'm going to get the fire when the president asks who told you to eat. I'm just going to direct it to Vacharamba, who's sitting right there, and say, talk to him. He's the one who gave me the nod. Whichever way it went, I thought he said, let's eat. So what's going to happen, we've got teams that are available, our immaculately dressed teams from the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission and the hotel staff that are here. They're going to take us through to the eating stations that are here. Please go ahead and have a refreshing evening and refreshing food served, of course, by Rainbow Towers Hotel. So for now, we're going to have dinner, and then after dinner, we'll proceed with the rest of the program. Bon appetit. Enjoy your dinner. Thank you. In the meantime, I will ask our Zimbabwe Republic Police. They will be entertaining us with music from Cape to Cairo. Okay. Thank you very much. Enjoy your dinner. That's not from Cape, just disclaimer, that's from Zimbabwe, but at some point they'll go to Cape. So once an usher comes to you, the ushers will come and get you, and we'll go straight for our dinner. Thank you very much.
by the Transparency International Zimbabwe Executive Director, Mr. Tafadzwa Chikumbu. Very good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe just to understand, principles against whistleblower protectionism, this call, refuse, resist, report corruption, is talking to the average person out there. But is there confidence in the people out there to come out in the issues of reporting corruption?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Currently we have a challenge where people are not willing to come and report corruption because currently we do not have legislation that protects them. And as a result, those who report corruption, sometimes they are subject to victimization, and we can even lose life when people are not protected by law. So as a result, we have seen very few people who are courageous to come and report corruption, and some who can actually whistleblow against their employers. But the end result has been most of them being fired, or some of them being.
What's the position when it comes to Africa in terms of whistleblower protectionism? I know Namibia had something that was quite concrete, even though in terms of capacitation financially, maybe there were challenges.
Yeah, actually, in Southern Africa in particular, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime is actually fast-tracking the implementation of whistleblower protection in the region, and we have noted that most countries, they do have whistleblower protection legislation, save for Zimbabwe and Malawi. But those that have the legislation, sometimes they are not able to implement it fully, owing to a number of challenges in the laws themselves.
All right, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Sure, thank you so much.
Wonderful. Mr. Mugwadi, Mr. Tafadzwa, he is the Executive Director of the Transparency International Zimbabwe, giving us his thoughts right there. All right, so it is the Africa Anti-Corruption Day dinner right here at the Harare International Conference Center. And I have the privilege of being joined by His Excellency, Diogo de Souza. Very good evening, Your Excellency.
Have a good evening to you.
Now, looking at this important day, can you tell us more about the importance of, the collaborative effort when it comes to the fight against corruption?
Well, ZAC is precisely trying to fight against corruption, fight corruption in Zimbabwe, and it's doing it precisely taking approaches from the government, from international organizations, from embassies like the Embassy of Portugal, also the delegation of the European Union, who want to help ZAC to fight these terrible thing that affects greatly the economies in many countries, including Zimbabwe.
And any recommendations, that you can give, especially to the African Union states, because this is an African Union initiative, for them to meet international benchmarks in the fight against corruption? Well,
Africa and African Union, of course, they will have their own way to do things, namely to fight corruption. In Europe, that has also been a greater priority, and in Portugal, my country, as we see that corruption kills the economy. So the only recommendation I have is keep on doing it, keep on fighting corruption.
Many thanks to Your Excellency. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Good evening.
The Deputy Envoy from Portugal right here in Zimbabwe, Ambassador Diogo de Souza, who is joining us in this very important day. Right, we are talking a capacitation of anti-corruption fight right here in Africa. The African Union initiative is the African Anti-Corruption Day commemorations. We have been having these over the past 5 years, but I'm privileged this evening to be joined by the Rwandese ambassador to Zimbabwe, Mr. James Musoni. Ambassador Musoni, thank you so much. Are you aware that Musoni is actually a Zimbabwean surname?
I'm aware that this is an African name because we share this
It's a pleasure to have you. Rwanda has been doing so well in many spheres. Can you tell us a little bit about your successes in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned? Any benchmarks that we can take from Rwanda?
Thank you so much. Corruption is a device that takes away benefits that would otherwise have empowered communities and the development of a country. So in Rwanda, we've been having a zero tolerance on corruption for some time. Mm-hmm. And three key factors that have led to the success in the fight against corruption in Rwanda. One is political will. Mm-hmm. Right from the start, from the top up to the bottom, there is that continuous fight against corruption, right from our president and the rest of the institution. The second point is the registration. Mm-hmm. We put in place anti-corruption laws that really help to fight corruption. That supported that zero tolerance policy. And the third one is institutions. Mm-hmm. Very, very strong institutions. For example, we have Ombudsman, whereby this one is an office that is in charge of fighting corruption, mm-hmm. as well as fighting injustice mm-hmm. within the society. Mm-hmm. So on specifically for corruption, every year, all senior government officials and anybody who is handling public finances, they are obliged to make their assets declaration every year. And then that office checks how your assets
mm-hmm. Are they in keeping with your remuneration?
So you have to disclose everything, mm-hmm. and it's checked and right from the president mm-hmm, mm-hmm. up to anybody who handles these resources. So this has enabled us to keep that transparency, mm-hmm. keep that those checks and balances, mm-hmm. But also general awareness, education to population that services people get. It's their right to get these services. Mm-hmm. They should not buy for these services. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You mentioned the issue of political will. Just related to that, how important is the issue of capacitation, as a key driver, as a key, determinant in the success of the fight against corruption?
It's very, very key because, corruption is very, very complicated. So you have to make sure that institutions that are dealing with this issue are well supported financially in terms of legal framework that enables them to operate, but also in terms of human capacity mm-hmm. to deal with these issues. Mm-hmm. So they are well facilitated. Facilitating and capacitating is very key in terms of fighting this corruption issue. Yeah.
Ambassador Msona, I have to thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
There you have it, from the horse's mouth, Ambassador James Musoni from the Rwanda. And he was telling us about their successes and how they do it in their country. The African Anti-Corruption Day commemorations right here at the HICC in Harare. I'm joined by another envoy, His Excellency Ambassador Matthias, who is from South Sudan. It's a very good evening. It's a pleasure having you, sir. It's good to see someone who is almost the same height.
No, we are the same. We are the same.
Looking at this fight against corruption, we have been commemorating this day for at least 5 years now. Looking at the detriments of corruption on development, what can you tell us?
I think if there is a corruption, the development will not work. And therefore, the corruption should be end to abolish the corruption. That will help any country, not Zimbabwe, in Africa particularly, to develop if there is no corruption. The development is in around many corners. We have the infrastructure and infrastructure, school, health. All these services cannot be developed if there is a corruption. Yeah.
Many thanks, Ambassador. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Yeah, you are welcome.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Right, as the African...
DJ Wealth News on the radio today. People have agreed to share the love away. I can't wait to be there in line. Oh no. Politicians have agreed to honor and obey. They'll come down to listen to what the people say. I can't wait to be there in line. Oh no. Oh, doobie 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 doobie. Doobie 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 doobie. Children are playing in the streets, loving everyone they meet. All the notes will be the rhythm of the day. Neighbors who greet each other, sisters and brothers, even enemies who come to be friends. Oh, I can't wait to be there in line. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, doobie 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 doobie. Doobie 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 doobie. If you are ready, feel free to come around. If you are ready, welcome me good. Let me fatila. If you are ready, oh, oh, oh. Say you want to live in love and kindness every day. Say you know the rhythm of love. Sing every present that you meet forever and ever me. And then I know you know the rhythm of love. Love, 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 love. I can't wait to be there in line. Oh no. I can't wait to be there in line. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, doobie 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 doobie. Doobie doobie.
Kuswigirarini uchitizamo mburi wako kuswigirarini kuswigirarini tichitenga mburi yedu kuswigirarini saingori tikanditsike nemuburi wacho tikanditsike saingori tikanditsike nemubura mose tikanditsike Dadane rudzi rwako chimiro chako netsinza rako pembedza rurimi bweredzi gonyura dadane rudzi rwako chimiro chako netsinza rako pembedza rurimi bweredzi gotevera dadane rudzi rwako chimiro chako netsinza rako pembedza rurimi bweredzi goyemura dadane rudzi rwako chimiro chako netsinza rako pembedza rurimi bweredzi gotevera zvaingori tsikanditsike nemumvuri wacho tsikanditsike zvaingori tsikanditsike nemumvura mose tsikanditsike Thank you.
Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Malaika, nakupenda
bazengenzane aye aye bazengenzane aye aye zeliqalizigamba
Thank you, Zimbabwe Republic Police Band. It is my pleasure to announce that our guest of honor tonight will be the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziambi, who is here and has had his dinner and is now awaiting for the proceedings of the rest of the program. So I thought maybe I'll just give you a heads up that in the next, it's 27 minutes to 8, maybe the next 7 minutes, 20 minutes to 8, we'll begin with the rest of the speeches so that, like I promised, we'll try and redeem the time. Okay? So the next 7 minutes, I'll come and then announce the next set of speakers, and then we can proceed with our evening tonight. But in the meantime, as you can, oh, yes, that table had not been served. Please go through. Please go through and be served. If you haven't eaten, there's plenty of food. Just go through and... Oh, are you going for seconds? Your Excellencies never go for seconds. That would be so embarrassing. But then again, please do enjoy. Please do enjoy. In the next 7 minutes, I'll be here, and then we can go with the rest of the speeches. Thank you. Zimbabwe Republic Police. Bulugwe Lami Rinechigamba just means Africa is great. Thank you. Enjoy. One, two, sorry. So the beauty of Africa, at my table, from Australia, United States of America. Ma'am, where are you from? From the United Kingdom. So we have Australia, America, United Kingdom. Okay. Can I have somebody from Ghana coming to sit here, please? Joking. Have a good one. And then from this table, where are you from, sir? I love your outfit. Please stand. Please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a big round of applause if you can. Where are you from?
I'm from here. I'm the president of Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs in Zimbabwe.
Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, the rest of that I wouldn't really know, but salam alaikum I do know. Please give me a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. As I go around the room, sir, where are you from? Minister of Foreign Affairs. Fantastic. Are you guys enjoying yourselves? I've seen you at 4th and you guys are Zimbabwean. Let me come right here. Your Excellency, the last time we met was in Victoria Falls, and you were officiating at the Eurowings, their debut flights. Eurowings is a German flight that flies into resorts, and they are flying into Victoria Falls. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and enjoy the evening. Thank you very much. And of course, Your Excellency from Egypt. We always say Cape to Cairo. Cape to Cairo, right? How are you? I'm very well. Enjoying the evening? Please go ahead. Thank you. So as I go through, please enjoy the evening. In the next 5 minutes or so, I will definitely be starting with the rest of the speeches as we celebrate Africa. We celebrate, of course, with having conversations on anti-corruption, hosted by the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, allow me to bring the room to order or to attention. If you are still eating, please do go ahead. But allow me to proceed with our program tonight. And I will ask all the speakers that are coming, as they give us a short speech, to ride on my protocol that I pronounced right at the beginning. So please, you don't have to go through the whole list of protocol. Just jump right in. Of course, acknowledging our guest of honor first, and then all protocols observed. You always get away with all protocol observed. As we begin this evening, ladies and gentlemen, progress in fighting corruption, we're going to go through the different work that has been done by the different states across Africa in fighting corruption. Our theme is strategies and mechanisms for the transparent management of COVID-19 funds. As a continent, we've all been through different stories that we've read across the continent of Africa. It's been a learning curve, and obviously with so many, God forbid, but if any pandemic does happen again, how will we mitigate? How will we come together as Africans to make sure that we are able to do the right thing and not use funds in manners that not the right way? Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, this evening, for the first presentation on progress in fighting corruption in Nigeria by the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. May we give him a big round of applause. Big round of applause as they come through. There we go. Once again, as he comes through, let's give him an encouraging big round of applause as he comes through to this microphone where I am now, as he comes to say a very short, allow me to say to all the Your Excellencies that are coming to speak, please, yes, exactly, correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Programs.
I see he has 4. Are these all your pages, Your Excellency?
Don't worry, I'm going to.
This looks like back to back, Your Excellency.
I'm going to stick to your time. Don't worry.
This looks like page number 7,
Don't
Your
worry.
Excellency.
I'm going to stick to your time. The guest of honor, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Z. Zeyambi. The Chairperson of Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Josie Mtandemoyo. The Minister of State for Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I've been warned by the Master of Ceremony to shorten my speech, and I'm just going to do that. But the guests of honor, let me use this opportunity to commend the effort of the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, President Emmerson Mnangagwa, for the support and sustenance in the fight against corruption in Zimbabwe. It is gratifying to note that through the effort of His Excellency, effective and leadership of a transparent society, through the numerous enabling policies of his government, it has yielded positive results. Today, citizens, observers, and international community have come to appreciate efforts to bequeath a legacy of transparent government to succeeding generations in Zimbabwe. Excellency, distinguished guests, there is no issue as topical in our world today as the challenges imposed by corruption on governance and on all peoples of the nations of the world. Corruption is not domiciled in any particular race, religion, or creed. It is a universal concept, and Africa is more hit, but I believe we can survive. While the constraint of time may not allow me to give a lengthy historical narrative of the pull and push factors of corruption, I would like to attempt a simple definition of corruption for us to understand the need for government to fight the scourge. Corruption, first and foremost, is an antisocial attitude or behavior which confers improper privileges on individuals and entities, contrary to legal norms as well as values. Such conduct impairs the authority's ability to secure the welfare of citizens. It is also the abuse of attributed power for private gains. It weakens government and deprive majority of citizens from the dividend of democracy. It breeds poverty, erodes trust, and widens the inequality gaps and social division within the society. Against this background, permit me to highlight some of the achievements of the anti-corruption war in Nigeria. It is a war because it can destroy the very essence of nationhood. The battle against the graft could be traced to independence, but coincidentally, it was the establishment of the War Against Indiscipline campaign under the able leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari when he was a military head of state that exposed the grave challenge that arbitrary corruption represents. The introduction of twin policies of the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, put further bite to the fight against corruption in Nigeria. Over time, these agencies have deployed government policy in the discharge of their work. One of the most important policies that have aided the work of this agency is the whistleblower policy. This policy allows for compensation for anyone who exposes corrupt practices. It has also led to the successful recovery of billions of naira of stolen funds. Also, the introduction of policies like the Central Audit Financial System, asset tracking, single treasury account, that is TSA, bank verification number, and due process are all targeted towards exposing corrupt practices. Now, let me just summarize the achievements. 1, by its reawakening of national consciousness against corruption. 2, recovery of laundered and stolen funds by both government and non-government officials. Prosecution of conviction of corrupt officials. Asset recovery. Creating a brand new image of transparency among the Committee of Nations. Establishing trust between the government and the governed. Closing all sources of illicit financial inflow. Re-establishing the moral values of the country. Securing the future of the youth by investing in them. Reaffirming and redistributing recovered funds and assets for national growth. It is in recognition of these achievements that the African Union in 2018 named His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari as the anti-corruption champion of the African Union. Excellency, distinguished guests, it is worthy to put on record that the list of achievements of my government effort to stamp out corruption is endless and inexhaustible. Suffice to say that where there's any modicum of achievement that is recorded in the battle against this judge, there are also challenges to be faced. We must not, however, be discouraged because no development will take place where corruption exists. Nigeria's former Minister of Finance and current Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, once warned through her book that corruption always fights back. It is a clarion call that we cannot afford to relent as government and individuals in our efforts to sanitize our society. Your Excellency, before I conclude, allow me to leave you with this quote by President Muhammadu Buhari, which says, and I quote, "If we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us," unquote. Thank you very much.
Big round of applause once again. Well, I think hers is bigger than mine, so yours works better than mine, right? Let's give the lady a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. She was given a job, so from now on, you'll be coming and sanitizing, right? Fantastic, fantastic. Courtesy of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, every speaker that comes, once you've made a speech, we would like to give you just a token of appreciation, just to say thank you. So, Your Excellency, if you may just come through, Your Excellency Zakaria Ifu, if you may just come through, please, and receive a token of appreciation. Let's give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, just to say thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, since I've been speaking for quite a while, I think I've got 3-4 bags that are waiting for me when I finish, right? Moving on, again, progress in fighting corruption in South Africa by the ambassador of the Republic of South Africa, H.E. Mabudafasi Rejoice. Big round of applause as we welcome Her Excellency. Let's encourage her. It's a long walk to freedom. As she walks across the stage, let's play a game. Let's find out which ambassador is going to give the shortest speech.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the Excellency Idi Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, even if he's not there, but spiritually we are with him. Honorable Chida Wisa. Hey, yeah, I'm going to speak Venda now. I can see that the names are becoming Vendaless. Yes, Justice, Honorable Justice L. Matanda Moyo, Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Minister Z. Ziyambi, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, all protocol observed. Good evening. We are told that we must speak only for 32 minutes, so I'll do that. I am pleased to share with you about the progress of fighting corruption in South Africa. There are moments in the life of a nation when old certainties are unsettled and new possibilities emerge. Corruption undermines democracy and impacts negatively on service delivery, human and socio-economic development, job creation, and public trust in government, as well as investor confidence in the country. It manifests in all spheres of society and occurs in the public sector and in the private sector. We as South Africans are standing together against corruption and ensuring that those who are responsible are held accountable for their crimes. We are rebuilding the state and restoring trust and pride in the public institutions. My country has been aware of the need of the unity anti-corruption efforts across all sectors to address the scourge of corruption and to demonstrate the commitment of government, business, and civil society to achieve the vision of our National Development Plan 2030 of a corruption-free South Africa, and a society in which key values such as the integrity, transparency, and accountability guide the actions of behavior of its citizens. In November 2020, we developed the implementation and adopted the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, building on the key of our Constitution, our anti-corruption legal framework and National Development Plan, and other instruments such as international treaties. The strategy uses research and stakeholders' inputs to outline the actions needed to achieve a society of free corruption. In addition to these domestic efforts, South Africa is also a signatory to various international, continental, and regional conventions and treaties that commit our country to implementing a range of interventions aimed at reducing corruption. These place an obligation of South Africa to prevent and combat corruption, and the national anti-corruption strategies, those could be filled. I'll be jumping because I'm told that I've got 2 minutes left. President Ramaphosa has signed a number of proclamations authorizing the special investigation group that they unlawfully or improper conduct in the procurement of goods, works, and services, especially that that is related serious with maladministration in connection with the affairs of the state institutions, improper unlawful conduct, and employees of the state institutions. South Africa also has developed a fraud prevention and ethics management strategy. The implementation of the fraud prevention and ethics management strategy has a specific focus on awareness and acknowledgement of the code of conduct in the public service and measures to prevent conflict of interest, such as adherence to the gifts, donations, and sponsorship, etc. Whistleblowing incidents reporting system where all whistleblowing matters are recorded and followed up for completeness. The relevant law enforcement agency are taking the necessary steps to address how to strengthen whistleblower protection. The work of the Commission has been critical to the fight against corruption in the country. State capture was an assault on our democracy, violated the rights of every citizen in our country. Through the various reports released by the Commission, we have come to understand what happened, who was involved, and what effect state capture has had on our state, our economy, and our society. The report is far more than a record of widespread corruption, fraud, and abuse. It is also an instrument through which the country can work to ensure that such events are never allowed to happen again. In South Africa, discussions are underway with the judiciary for the creation of special court roles for state capture and corruption. Whilst we have taken decisive steps to end corruption, we know this fight against corruption is far from being over. However, my government remains committed to this fight with a renewed intensity. Thanks to the outcomes of the State Capture Commission, the strengthening of law enforcement agencies, and the implementation of new anti-corruption practices in the public service. I've said I won't go on because others have to come on, but we all see the problems of state capture and other things. We are prepared to march on and make it that it must not continue. We stop it. I thank you.
A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests. Now I feel bad. Your Excellencies, please talk at will. Feel free. Eh? Thank you very much. Once again, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, the Ambassador to Zimbabwe from South Africa, Her Excellency Mabuda Fasi rejoice. A big round of applause once again. Thank you. As a master of ceremonies, I was just thinking, what does corruption mean for me in my line of work? And I thought that corruption for me is when a whole room agrees to eat before the guest of honor has arrived. That's corruption. That is corruption, and we are all complicit in this corruption. Your Excellency, we were here nicely, waiting for you. And then I had a conversation with Your Excellencies that were standing in that area, if you remember yourselves. And they said, let's eat. And I was swayed. My sincere apologies. I tried to stop corruption, but it couldn't work. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, as we move with our program, allow me for us to hear the story on the progress in fighting corruption in in Rwanda, by the Ambassador of the Republic of Rwanda to Zimbabwe, His Excellency James Musoni. Let's give him a big round of applause as he comes through. Again, the beauty of Africa, the word Ubuntu. Musoni is actually a shorter name, and obviously is the African Union, which brings us together. Ubuntu uniting us and bringing us together and making sure that the borders that were put before us never stop the reality that we are one and Africa indeed is one. Your Excellency.
Our guest of honor, the Honorable Minister of Justice, Honorable Ministers present, distinguished guests, oral protocol observed. Good evening. It's truly an honor to be invited this evening to contribute to Africa Anti-Corruption Day. And I'm happy to give a statement on progress in fighting corruption in Rwanda. I also want to join others to say that corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. It erodes trust, weakens democracy, hampers economic development, and further exacerbates inequality, poverty, and social division. I would like to recall that several reports have indicated that global corruption is now costing around $1 trillion annually. This has severe effects on the lives of our people. This cost is very high and continues to weaken the resilience of our communities. Guest of honor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me share Rwanda's experience. Various reports indicate that Rwanda performs relatively well in terms of control of corruption. For example, according to Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index reports, consistently, Rwanda is among the first three performing well African countries. This has been a result of a sustained political will, comprehensive legal framework, and the existence of strong institutions charged with the fight of this corruption. For example, national anti-corruption policy, anti-corruption and assets declaration laws, that have been in place for a while. Every senior government official and those handling public finances are required to declare their assets annually to the Office of the Ombudsman. This legal framework promotes good governance and zero tolerance to corruption in both public and private sectors. Furthermore, a specialized chamber at the level of intermediate courts has been established to hear at the first instance corruption cases. Rwanda has signed and ratified the core international conventions against corruption, such as the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, and the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crimes. All of these efforts demonstrate the political commitment to penalize the acts of corruption. The zero tolerance policy is maintained right from the top leadership. I thank you for your kind attention.
Big round of applause once again. Thank you very much. As you receive your token of appreciation, which I'm sure you're going to declare to the Rwandese government that this is what I received. I can even send you pictures, Your Excellency Paul Kagame. It's just a Zimbabwe bird, nothing's fancy. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, we move on with the next two speakers from our various countries that are presenting tonight. Progress in fighting corruption in Kenya, or Kenya, depending on which side of Samora Machel you live here in Zimbabwe. By the Ambassador of the Republic of Kenya, Her Excellency Stella Munyi. A big round of applause as she comes through. Let's encourage her as she comes through.
Guest of honor, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Siyambi Siyambi, Minister of State of Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable Oliver Dow, the Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Justice Matanda Moyo, all protocols observed. Good evening. I feel privileged to deliver a statement on the progress in fighting corruption in Kenya. As in we normally say, I do associate myself with the submissions that are stated by my colleagues, and also the application of mutatis mutandis somewhere else where that language is spoken. So the Kenya government, in its efforts to promote integrity and combat corruption and economic crimes, as enshrined in the Constitution 2010, has institutionalized the legal and policy framework to ensure efficient, effective, and accountable in the utilization of the national resources for the benefits of the citizenry and the national development. These include the Constitution, Acts of Parliament, establishment of constitutional bodies to promote integrity, combat, prevent corruption, economic crimes, and ethical conduct through the enforcement, prevention, public education, and promotion of standards and best practices. Presently, the Kenya government's strategic focus emphasizes on high-impact investigations, asset recovery, corruption prevention, and partnership approach in a bid to combat corruption and economic crimes. The government has made concerted efforts to expedite investigations into allegations of corruption, economic crimes, and ethical conduct, especially those that are of high impact and of great public interest, including preventive initiatives such as system reviews, public education, promotion of best practices in ethics and integrity. Guest of honor, the executive led by the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, has continued to provide the necessary goodwill as well as setting the country's agenda on good governance and anti-corruption. The state and public officers are subjected to Leadership and Integrity Act 2012 as a prerequisite for appointment. They are also subjected to declaration of income, asset, and liabilities biannually and upon first appointment to public officers for purposes of wealth accountability. Similarly, the Kenyan judiciary, headed by the Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court, Lady Justice Martha Koome, has also given the necessary support in fast-tracking anti-corruption cases through the establishment of special anti-corruption magistrate courts as well as a specialized High Court division to deal with anti-corruption cases only. Likewise, the Ombudsman Office has been established to deal with ethics and corruption issues within the judiciary and the judicial officers. Parliament has also given the anti-corruption fight a great impetus through the enactment of the requisite anti-corruption laws and providing oversight through the various committees. The county assemblies also are responsible for oversight of devolved funds to ensure development at grassroots level and for the citizenry benefit as well. Guest of honor, Kenya Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, is the main constitutional body mandated with the responsibility to promote integrity, combat and prevent corruption, economic crimes, and unethical conduct. EACC has continued to spearhead ethic, integrity, and anti-corruption efforts through law enforcement, prevention, public education, and promotion of standards and best practices. EACC works alongside other constitutional offices such as the Office of the Attorney General and Department of Justice, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and the Criminal Investigations Department, among others, to ensure speedy investigation, prosecutions, and conclusion of anti-corruption cases and economic crime cases. As part of the efforts aimed at strengthening anti-corruption discourse, the government is committed to implementing national and international instruments of governance by cooperating and partnering with the relevant key stakeholders in the formulation, development, and review of legislation related to corruption, economic crimes, and unethical conduct. The development and strengthening of policy and legal anti-corruption frameworks such as the Public Finance Management Act, the Public Officers Ethics Act, the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act, Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act that establishes the Asset Recovery Agency and the Financial Reporting Center. Additionally, Conflict of Interest Bill, the Lifestyle Audit, bribery regulations, and bribery guidelines are part of the ongoing government efforts in combating and preventing corruption and economic crimes. Similarly, amendments to the EACC Act to empower it to institute proceedings for recovery of property or proceeds of corruption located outside Kenya has been a major milestone towards the fight against corruption and economic crimes. Further, the establishment of the Kenya Leadership and Integrity Forum that has a multi-sectoral approach consisting of public, private, and civil society provide a mechanism for the implementation and design of anti-corruption initiatives and has contributed to the success in the prevention and combating of anti-corruption and economic crimes in the country. Guest of honor, the Kenya government has also partnered with national, regional, and international partners in building capacity and instituting mechanisms to fight corruption and unethical behavior. Further, the government is actively engaged with the National Council of Administration of Justice, multi-agency team, the Kenya Leadership and Integrity Forum to develop policies and strategic interventions to strengthen anti-corruption policy framework and enhance cooperation among stakeholders. At the international level, guest of honor, the Kenya government continues to collaborate and partner with various agencies, governments, and international organizations excuse me, to strengthen capacity in the fight against corruption and recovery of illicitly acquired assets. The Kenya government has also been collaborating and partnering with other countries by sharing experiences, challenges, and insights on corruption-related matters. In its endeavor to sustainable promotion of integrity and ethical standards and best practices, the Kenya government has remained steadfast in raising public awareness, fostering public support, and building capacity of various sectors in the fight against corruption. This includes public outreach programs, conducting targeted civic society engagements, undertaking media education programs through the television and radio stations, and featured printed media articles. In addition, the government has embarked on training members of the corruption prevention committees from the various institutions, conducting media education programs in the institutions of higher learning, as well as conducting general sensitization and training of integrity assurance officers from different government institutions. Guest of honor, the Kenyan government has been actively promoting ethical standards and practices as provided for under Chapter 6 of the Constitution and related laws. These include, among others, approving leadership and integrity codes for public entities and for state officers, coordinating the signing of the leadership and integrity codes by state officers upon appointment and assuming office, as well as approving applications to open and operate bank accounts outside Kenya. This effort has gone a long way in aiding the government's efforts to combat, prevent corruption and economic crimes. Guests of honor, as I conclude, the Kenya government, like any other government, has faced a number of challenges that have hampered effective implementation of the relevant anti-corruption strategies. Key among them, the COVID-19 pandemic, which slowed down its planned activities. Other challenges include delays in responses to international requests to support investigation, slow judicial process, and the ever-changing and evolving crime environment that poses a challenge on the efforts towards countering corruption and economic crimes. Similarly, weak legal framework in implementing the Chapter 6 of the Constitution and lack of a legal mechanism to ensure implementation of system reviews recommendations. Nevertheless, guest of honor, in spite of the challenges, the Kenya government has remained steadfast in its efforts in promoting integrity and ethical standards and best practices, as well as preventing corruption and economic crimes for the development of the nation and prosperity of its people. Kenya will not relent in taking timely appropriate actions to those found in violation of the anti-graft laws or in breach of the ethical codes. Guest of honor, the Republic of Kenya will be inclined to partner and collaborate with the Extreme Republic of Zimbabwe. Thank you. Asante sana, Maitabasa.
Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And now to the final presentation on the progress in fighting corruption in Tanzania by the Ambassador of the Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Professor Emmanuel Mbena. Let's give him a big round of applause as he comes through. Let's clap hands. I see no paper. I'm so excited right now. I'm really excited. He's got no paper. I just hope, now that I see you holding paper, I'm even more worried because you're sitting next to the ambassador who's just spoken from Kenya. Her Excellency Stella Muni. I hope you didn't take any notes from her. Yeah, big round of applause. A big round of applause.
The guest of honor, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Honorable Ziyambi. I almost said Kazembe because the two names confuse me all the time. The chairman of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Lois Matanda Moyo. Excellencies, all protocol observed. I'm very honored to share, albeit very briefly, the progress Tanzania has made in the fight against corruption. I mentioned the nature, the scope, and the impact of the problem just briefly, and then highlight the successes that Tanzania has made in that regard. But let me also join my colleagues to commend His Excellency President Mnangagwa and the government of Zimbabwe for the tireless efforts that we see being made in addressing corruption. Like cancer, corruption is real, subtle, and very destructive. And every effort must be made to wage tirelessly the war against this menace. Corruption oftentimes takes the form of bribery, favoritism, nepotism, economic irregularity, and even abuse of public property for personal purposes. And such will be found in land administration, in taxation, in customs, in procurement processes, and many other petty corruption aspects to do with the traffic and customs and all those. Guest of honor, Tanzania upholds an uncompromising stance against corruption, especially because it increases inequality, it decreases popular accountability, it erodes the trust of the public in the public sector, and it leads to wastage of taxes and public money earmarked for very important projects. Tanzania recognizes the potential of corruption to have a disproportionate impact on the poor and most vulnerable communities. And we understand corruption leads to reduced access to services, including health, education, and justice. And therefore, corruption is a negative element in society. It has negative impacts on sustainable development and impedes on business growth, escalates costs, and poses serious legal and reputational risks in a country. And therefore, Tanzania has started on its resolve to fight corruption through a variety of strategies. Tanzania's anti-corruption objective is fourfold. First, we want to ensure public authorities revise practices or procedures that reduce the risk in order to reduce the risk of corrupt conduct occurring. We want to promote integrity and good reputation in public administration. We want to raise awareness in the community with regard to corrupt conduct. We want people to understand what is it. Sometimes you think corruption is an element that you find it in the bush. We want to encourage the community to be able to report when corruption has taken place. The vision of anti-corruption in Tanzania is to have a corruption-free society where all individuals have equal access to the fruits of development. And therefore, towards achieving this objective, Tanzania has done the following. First, we have put in place a legal framework specifically to combat corruption. Corruption is criminalized under the Prevention and Combating Corruption Act, which covers attempted corruption, extortion, passive and active bribery, money laundering, and bribery of all of foreign officials. There is a range of legislation that covers other corruption case offenses. Gift giving and the use of facilitation payments for the purpose of inducing corrupt behavior are illegal under this act. So first, that legal framework. But secondly, there's anti-corruption institutions in place. Tanzania has put in place 2 anti-corruption institutions established by a law. Both of these anti-corruption agencies are mandated to uphold accountability and good governance towards achieving a corruption-free state. The Prevention and Combating of Corruption Bureau, PCCB, in Kiswahili TAKUKURU, is a law enforcement institution established and mandated by the Prevention and Combating of Corruption Act to prevent corruption through monitoring of public entities, educating the society on the effects of corruption, and to enforce the law against corruption. That means they can investigate and they can prosecute. The Zanzibar Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Authority plays a similar role for Zanzibar, for the Zanzibar side of the Union. And of course, these agencies work in collaboration with other agencies around the world to make sure corruption has no place to hide. PCCB, or the Anti-Corruption Agency, conducts workshops with the financial institutions, NGOs, and the private sector to enhance awareness of corruption. The PCCB, the Prevention and Combating of Corruption Bureau, is currently implementing phase 3 of the anti-corruption strategy. And of course, we have the anti-corruption court, and so people can be taken to court that are designated specifically for corruption cases. Number 3, there's a public accountability measure or mechanism. Tanzania has established the Ethics Commission, which administers oath of commitment to the Code of Ethics of public servants and is mandated to require senior public servants to declare personal assets every year. And of course, give an account in case there is a radical change or variation in the person's assets. Tanzania has introduced the e-government and other initiatives to make sure the tendering process is guided properly. So the e-government ensures e-tendering and a general simplification of the procurement processes in the country. Number 5, Tanzania has introduced the participation of multiple stakeholders in the process or in the war against corruption. These include higher education institutions that are doing research and studies on corruption to make sure we understand the nature, the scope, the spheres, the patterns of corrupt tendencies, and the factors and environments that tend to brew or even perpetuate corruption, and then inform anti-corruption strategies. Tanzania has also provided space for the role of the press. Tanzania has a vibrant press which tends to expose corrupt activities that might otherwise remain hidden. The press contributes to making the public sector honest, transparent, and accountable. The press educates the general public in relation to corruption and the responsibility of everyone to reject corruption. I was very much encouraged by that writing. Fighting corruption is everyone's responsibility. And we think in Tanzania, the press is making a contribution to that understanding. Corruption is an enemy of everyone, and therefore it is everyone's responsibility to fight it. Then at the school level, college level, and with the intention to begin to build a mindset that disdains corruption, Tanzania has experimented using schools, setting up anti-corruption clubs in schools and higher education institutions to promote integrity and ethical behavior. At the end of the day, corruption is not just a practice. Corruption is a mindset, corruption is a culture, and you want to deal with it from the development stage of young people. And therefore, anti-corruption clubs are set up in schools, and the institutions of higher learning have helped to cultivate the culture of integrity among students. I don't have the time to go through a list of corruption perception indices over the years, but we can see an upward trend in that regard, and we are therefore encouraged by the efforts that have been taken as they are showing signs of success. As I conclude, Honorable Guest of Honor, I want to say that corruption is a problem that seriously tarnishes the image of countries and humanity in general. It hampers genuine development efforts. It's most hostile to those living in abject poverty. Therefore, relentless efforts must continue in the fight against corruption, and hope must be maintained that the war will be won. In addition to legal and administrative actions and awareness creation, there may be a need to pursue some kind of social re-engineering. People need to continue to grow into being more and more human. Corruption has this face that projects humanity as cruel, unkind, inconsiderate. We need to find a way to re-engineer the desire to become more and more human, which means to be more compassionate, will mean greater commitment to human dignity, will mean assuming sources of fulfillment from self-sacrifice instead of amassing wealth to ourselves. And we'll seek to pursue contentment with enough, not contentment with so much. There is no specific strategy which can be considered effective for a particular country to adopt in order to control the act of corruption, unethical behaviors, as well as culture of impunity. So Tanzania is very keen to learn from others with regard to the war against corruption. So as my colleague sister, Her Excellency Ambassador Munyi said, Tanzania will be very keen to see how we could work together with Zimbabwe to learn from each other on how to fight this menace. Furthermore, and finally, the essentials of success in the fight against corruption in Tanzania are in place, and those are strong political will under the leadership of Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, the legal framework that we have, the specific institutions that are in place, the structured accountability mechanisms, and the participation of multiple stakeholders. These are essentials that are in place, and therefore, needless to say, the war will continue as it must, but we can be sure at some point the war will be won. Thank you very much.
Are you coming? I'm joking. It's okay. Don't worry. Oh, okay. All right. Big round of applause. Big round of applause once again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much there for that speech. I would like to hasten and move with our program tonight. And we've been having presentations rather, on the progress in fighting corruption from the ambassadors of Nigeria, South Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And I know that all the African states here represented, and indeed across the world, have their own stories and their own presentations that they would have made. But as an organization, we felt that we could only choose the 5 so that they could speak and hear the stories that they've been through in fighting corruption in their countries. At this time, it is my pleasure to call for the remarks on this day of the Anti-Corruption Day, which is commemorated, rather, not celebrated, commemorated on the 11th of July. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, please give a rousing, warm welcome to the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Justice L. Matanda Moyo. And I know you can do better. I know you can do better. Big round of applause all around the room. And in the times that I have had occasion to be a master of ceremonies at the event, Honorable Justice, would you like to stand right here? Which camera? This camera? Okay, this one? Yeah. Picture, please. Well, make up your minds, guys. She can't be staying for too long. You have no idea how, I need to change my profile picture. You have no idea how powerful this picture is all the time. I have occasion to MC your event. Esteemed guests, Your Excellencies, a big round of applause once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Our guest of honor, Minister of Justice, Honorable Siyambi Siyambi. As you may be aware, in 2020 this time, His Excellency, the President of Zimbabwe, Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, launched the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which is now operational. It is headed by the National Anti-Corruption Strategy Steering Committee, and below that, there are 6 subcommittees. These 6 subcommittees met in Harare yesterday, and they came up with a communique to deliver to His Excellency, the President of Zimbabwe. So before I move into my speech, I will read through the communique, which reads, having met on the occasion of the local commemoration of the Africa Union Anti-Corruption Day on 11 July 2022, whose theme is Strategies and Mechanisms for the Transparent Management of COVID-19 Funds, hereby wish to convey to His Excellency the following key messages gleaned from our deliberations. Firstly, recalling His Excellency's commitment to tackling corruption and recognize and commend the significant progress made so far on this commitment, in particular, the approval by Cabinet of the principles of the Protected Disclosure, Whistleblower Protection Bill, and Witness Protection Bill. Hereby call on His good offices for support towards partners implementing the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, NACS, by ensuring the speedy enactment of the Whistleblower Protection Bill and Witness Protection Bill, spearhead the review of the Anti-Corruption Act and other anti-corruption related legislation to further strengthen the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission and its partners and the anti-corruption framework, legal framework in general. Ensure adequate funding of the implementation of the NACS itself. Encourage citizens in general and a broad cross-section of stakeholders and institutions to actively participate in the implementation of NACS. Champion the review of the current education curricula to instill values of transparency, accountability, and integrity in the Zimbabwean society and encourage broad-based participation of citizens in fighting corruption. Ensure that all public entities establish integrity committees. Ensure enforcement of declarations of assets, declarations of conflict of interest, and integrity pledges signed by all senior public officials in pursuance of their duties. Support the agent capacitation of all institutions in the asset recovery chain. Ensure adequate funding to accelerate the speedy digitization of current systems, alongside the adoption of e-governance technologies in all ministries, departments, and agencies, and state-owned enterprises to reduce opportunities for corruption. Forge international partnerships with other jurisdictions through mutual legal assistance treaties and informal cooperation for sharing information, for investigations and prosecutions, as well as asset recovery. In conclusion, we call for concerted efforts by African countries to address the concerns captured in the theme for this year's AU Anti-Corruption Day and encourage remaining sister countries to ratify, domesticate, and implement the AU Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption. This is the end of the communique. I thank you. On behalf of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, who are the hosts of this event, I am delighted to welcome you all to this auspicious occasion of 6th Annual African Anti-Corruption Day, whose theme is Strategies and Mechanisms for the Transparent Management of COVID-19 Funds. We are pleased to have you, Honorable Minister, sir, especially having gone through a very busy day today, but you still managed to come through. We are very grateful for that. Honorable Minister, I would like to thank you for agreeing to be our guest of honor today, despite your busy schedule. The African Anti-Corruption Day comes at a time when the world was facing the COVID-19 pandemic. This day, therefore, gives us the opportunity to commit to collective action in preventing and combating corruption as we reflect on the devastating consequences of COVID-19 on governance institutions, the economy, and the society. As anti-corruption stakeholders, it is a day where we reflect and dialogue on the strategies and mechanisms taken to fight corruption. As such, Honorable Minister, I am pleased to report the strategies, achievements, and challenges faced by the Commission in the fight against corruption in Zimbabwe. To tackle corruption successfully, anti-corruption agencies need to work together with other law enforcement agencies, supreme audit bodies, the private sector entities, public sector entities, civil society organizations, academia, parliamentarians, youths, and the public. No sole institution can tackle this vice, hence the common adage, two heads are better than one. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission has established 3 programs to drive its strategy and realize the set targets and outcomes in line with the National Development Strategy number 1 and government's zero tolerance to corruption mantra, namely corporate affairs, which supports the operations of ZAC, combating corruption, comprising investigations and asset recovery, and prevention of corruption, comprising public education, systems and compliance, and research. The focus has been to increase investigations for the prosecution of corruption cases, recovery of proceeds of crime, and enhancement of the prevention of corruption and other malpractices, both in the public and private sectors. Increase access to ZAC services through digitalization of ZAC platforms, improve service delivery, and enhance awareness by citizens and institutions. The Commission is currently working to increase its establishment and has commenced the process to employ more officers. Honorable Minister, sir, we need to increase staff levels to enable ZAC to effectively carry out its mandate countrywide. Our target is to increase investigations of high-profile cases and cases of national interest which will be referred to the National Prosecuting Authority. We have also increased the asset recoveries, compliance checks, and systems reviews of institutions in both the public and private sectors. In the last 2 years, we have decentralized to 5 provinces and have established offices in Bulawayo, Gweru, Mashingo, Chinoi, and Mutare. We are looking forward to decentralizing to Mashonaland Central Province before the end of the year. Since 2020, the Commission has seized the cumulative figure of 9 immovable properties, including 1 property in South Africa, and a total of 38 motor vehicles. Requests for mutual legal assistance have been made for further 2 properties in South Africa, and we are expecting a seizure of the said properties. To date, 35 cases, files for asset confiscation and unexplained wealth orders have been referred to the National Prosecuting Authority. Honorable Minister, this was achieved by an asset recovery unit established in 2019 with an establishment of 4 officers. And lessons were learned from our Nigerian counterparts, EFCC, and training of officers was conducted by World Bank, STAR Initiative, as well as International Center for Asset Recovery. For investigations, ZAC surpassed these targets to complete and referred matters to the NPA. Since 2019 to 2021 end year, cumulatively, ZAC has referred over 300 dockets to the National Prosecuting Authority. An analysis of the reports received shows that most of the reports received were against senior officials in local authorities, ministries, parastatals, state enterprises, private sector, and parliamentarians. For the years 2021 and 2022, ZAC has also focused on prevention of corruption and embarked on a massive virtual public education campaign on the digital and non-digital platforms. The awareness campaigns spanned across radio and television programs, social media platforms, etc. This year, with the uplifting of COVID-19 restrictions, ZAC has commenced the National Public Education Campaign launched by His Excellency in 2019, dubbed Corruption Ends With You, which had been disturbed by COVID-19 restrictions. So far, the Public Education Unit has covered the following provinces: Mashingo, Midlands, and Matabeleland North. Several public education campaigns have also been undertaken in schools to create a culture of shunning corruption through the Catch Them Young concept. I'm also delighted to highlight that the country, through Aroma Institute, has developed a National Corruption Perception Index, which identifies the actual status of corruption in the country. Having our own Corruption Perception Index will help the country to establish homegrown strategies and solutions that can be adopted and implemented. Report has been finalized and will be presented to yourself very soon. The Commission, through its compliance unit, has conducted over 92 desk compliance research to evaluate the level of compliance in local authorities. 13 comprehensive compliance checks at NatFarm, National Railways of Zimbabwe, NASA, 7 rural district councils, 3 town councils, and 1 urban council, namely Bulawayo City Council, Mutoko Rural District Council, Mudzi Rural District Council, Umzingwani Rural District Council, Umguza Rural District Council, Makonde Rural District Council, Zaka Rural District Council, Mberengwa Rural District Council, Chegutu Municipality, Norton Town Council, and Karoi Town Council. These led to the arrest of senior officials. Implementation matrices between the Commission and 10 local authorities were signed to ensure that the recommendations from ZAC are effected. The Commission has commenced ongoing systems and processes review exercise at the Ministry of Industry and Commerce and the Ministry of Mines and Mining Development. This has resulted in the arrest of some officials at the Ministry of Industry and Commerce on corruption allegations unearthed during the systems review exercise. To ensure the implementation of the Auditor General's recommendations, the Commission introduced the dialogues where key institutions were engaged to ensure that recommendations of the Auditor General are implemented. 11 dialogue sessions were held with different stakeholders, including permanent secretaries, CEOs of independent commissions, procurement management units, CEOs of parastatals, internal auditors from ministries, commissions, rural district councils, and urban councils, and regulatory authorities. The Commission carried on with the institutionalization of corruption prevention by establishing integrity committees in public institutions. A total of 27 institutions under the pilot project have set up the integrity committees. Training of such committees have commenced. ZAC conducted several research motivated by the trends where corruption was most prevalent, namely mining sector, the health sector, public finance management, public procurement, fuel sector study, rural mill subsidy program. The findings of the research were summarized and disseminated to stakeholders. ZAC has signed 24 memoranda of understandings with various national stakeholders and 4 with local, regional, and international stakeholders. As we all know, Zimbabwe is a rich country with abundant natural resources, especially minerals and wildlife, but the benefit from these resources is not enjoyed by the citizens due to corruption. Minerals and wildlife product smuggling into foreign countries is rampant and is an indicator that we need to plug the loopholes as a country. Hence, the importance of the MOUs signed with Botswana and Zambia, as we can collaborate to curb such activities. In this regard, we have also engaged our Southern African anti-corruption agencies to assist in providing us with information and technical support to ensure that we don't continue to lose our resources. In line with e-governance, ZAC has established digital media platforms to increase its visibility and access to ZAC services, namely an official ZAC website, Facebook page, Twitter handle, WhatsApp platform, TikTok, and anonymous whistleblower application. We have developed an electronic case management system, and we are in the process of operationalization of the system. Officers are currently receiving training. Honorable Minister, on this very day in 2020, His Excellency launched the Zimbabwe National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2020 to 2024. And I'm pleased to note that the implementation of the strategy is well on course. The strategy has brought on board all critical stakeholders in the fight against corruption and are all represented here today. Stakeholder collaboration has improved significantly, resulting in the adoption of several policies. We are looking forward to have achieved our set goals by the year 2024. Honorable Minister, during the COVID pandemic, we did face several challenges. 29 officers were affected by COVID-19. However, all were treated and have since recovered. The pandemic also affected the operations of the Commission due to movement restrictions for critical programs such as combating corruption and prevention of corruption. The downscaling of operations at the courts greatly affected operations at the Commission, with the public agitating for expeditious completion of cases before the courts. The Commission also witnessed an increase in a number of procurement fraud cases, such as price gouging for personal protective equipment, ventilators, medication, and falsified medicines, which was a result of wavering of tender procedures to save lives. Honorable Minister, there was also theft of equipment donated by government to hospitals and other health facilities. The Commission has put in place measures to avoid future abuses. The Commission has developed an anti-corruption toolkit which has been shared with various organizations. As a result of the toolkit, the Commission managed to prevent would-be corrupt activities at most public entities. In terms of legislative reforms, we have requested for the review of the Anti-Corruption Commission Act, Chapter 9.22. I'm no longer a judge minister. I've been out for a while. The highlights of the proposals in the proposed lay bill are the inclusion of comprehensive corruption offenses and whistleblower and witness protection provisions, among other issues, to strengthen the legislation and ensure full compliance to the provisions of Africa Union Convention for Combating and Preventing Corruption. The lack of adequate whistleblower and witness protection provisions have gravely affected cases at ZAC, as whistleblowers and witnesses have been victimized, fired, transferred, some nearly killed for giving information to ZAC. The acting prosecutor general also informed me that he's having problems with witnesses at court as they are frightened to testify. As I conclude, Your Excellency, we are as I conclude, Honorable Minister, we are highly appreciative of your continued support given us to fight against corruption in Zimbabwe. This is ample testimony of political will in Zimbabwe, starting from the highest office. With such support and a robust approach to fight against corruption, we will surely drive our nation towards a firm trajectory in pursuit of the attainment of our Vision 2030 of an upper middle income economy. I wish to thank all stakeholders for their support in the anti-corruption drive and wish you all a good evening. I thank you. Good evening once again. Our MC is just chickened out. He's so frightened to now call upon the guest of honor to present his speech, and I will do the honors. Our guest of honor is well known to you. He's none other the Minister of Justice, Honorable Ziyambi Ziyambi. He is a registered legal practitioner. He is my learned colleague in the field. Honorable Minister, say you can take the platform. Thank you.
No, this one. I don't use that. It's okay. Pray, be seated. Sit. Our Director of Ceremonies, who has been entertaining us a little bit tonight, the Minister of State for Harare Metropolitan Province, Honorable Senator Engineer Shidao, the Chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Honorable Justice Lois Matanda Moyo, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps here present, members of Parliament here present, senior government officials, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my singular honor and privilege to be addressing you as we join the African continent in commemorating the Africa Anti-Corruption Day. On this day, African governments, together with private sector players and other stakeholders, examine strategies to end corruption and other unethical conduct. It is commendable that this year's commemoration comes against the backdrop where two more members of our continent have ratified the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption. As we accelerate our quest to realize the Africa we want outlined in the AU Agenda 2063 and locally our National Vision 2030, it is critically important that we keep dialogue ongoing with regards to the eradication of corruption. Its corrosive impact on the overall governance and business environment ultimately exacerbates inequalities and income distribution, thereby adversely affecting long-term economic growth. Additionally, corruption has dire impacts on investment, taxation, public expenditure, and human development. Corruption is an undesirable evil in our country, and indeed on the continent. Corruption must be eradicated. The theme of this 6th edition of the African Anti-Corruption Day, and I quote, strategies and mechanisms for the transparent management of COVID-19 funds, unquote, is pertinent. It calls on us to reflect on the strategies implemented to ensure transparency in the management of resources meant for the mitigation of the COVID-19 pandemic in particular. More broadly, the theme highlights the importance of transparency in the management of public resources as a whole. Undoubtedly, the pandemic exerted an unfortunate toll on social, economic, and health systems, by and large testing the strength of institutions in the planning, mobilization, and management of resources in times of disasters. Unfortunately, it created conditions that bred corruption and mismanagement of COVID-19 resources across the continent. The lessons learned have left us wiser, both with regards to the management of scarce resources mobilized for disasters, as well as the importance of building internal capacities to address the disasters we may face in the future. The development of closer synergies and stronger collaboration between national anti-corruption agencies and African regional economic communities are critical. As such, greater focus must be deployed towards the implementation of provisions of the African Union Convention and other instruments to reject the tendency of corruption. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is most unfortunate that Africa continues to be projected in bad light as a result of the scourge of corruption. It is now imperative that the peoples of the continent draw from our rich heritage, based on our rich heritage-based value systems of Ubuntu Wunu, which by nature abhor corruption. Let us therefore scale up programs towards entrenching transparency and accountability on our terms for the good of our economies and our own people. To this end, we must deliberately debunk negative narratives which seek to perpetuate our governance systems as inherently corrupt. Ladies and gentlemen, partnerships in the fight against corruption are always welcome. In the case of Zimbabwe, the illegal sanctions and other regime change machinations against our country has taught us the need to purposefully reduce dependence on contemporary projects under the tutelage of hegemonic Western countries. These entities often promise to improve the economic and governmental conditions of our countries, perpetuate conditions that foster environments of scarcity under which corruption breeds. Zimbabwe, under the Second Republic, is unwavering in its commitment to advance the shared aspiration of the African continent as outlined in Agenda 2063. Corruption will never be allowed to stand in the way of our country's industrialization, modernization, and sustainable socio-economic development agenda. Through our people-centered policies and decentralized development, we shall realize a higher quality of life. Our people, particularly women, children, and the youth, will be fed, housed, educated, empowered, and provided with quality social services. I therefore call upon fellow citizens to remain vigilant and expose corruption as well as other rent-seeking behavior that hold up the realization of this national goal. My administration is prioritizing reforms within public institutions towards a corruption-free public sector. That said, ladies and gentlemen, the private sector, as well as other entities such as non-governmental organizations, must be committed to transparency and accountability in the use of resources that draw from and are meant for the people of Zimbabwe. I therefore challenge leaders across the entire socio-economic and political sectors to recommit themselves to the fight against corruption. Under the Second Republic, every person has a duty and obligation to uphold high ethical and moral standards in the interest of our country and the people we serve. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome the outcomes of the peer review mechanism provided to my government under the continent's protocols and conventions. These have enriched the implementation of strategies to fight corruption. In this regard, we are scaling up the rollout of legal frameworks for the recovery of assets acquired through the proceeds of crime, combating money laundering, and carrying out lifestyle audits of public officials. Furthermore, my government has embarked on an array of public reforms to instill a culture of hard, honest work, develop efficiencies, competencies, entrenching the good governance principles of accountability, transparency, personal integrity, and financial probity. These include the introduction of performance contracts in the public sector as building blocks of ensuring a high performance and result-oriented government. Similarly, the reform of state-owned enterprises and public entities is yielding positive results. The enactment and amendments to Acts of Parliament, such as the Money Laundering Act, Finance Act, Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Assets Act, as well as the Business Entities Act, further give impetus to our quest to eradicate corruption. The recent cabinet approval of the principles for the whistleblowers and witness protection is set to expedite the drafting of the relevant bill. I heard the chair lamenting the lack of progress. There is now going to be progress. The Attorney General is seized with this, and I'm sure very soon you'll see significant progress in that regard. Meanwhile, I want to applaud ZAC for Memorandum of Understanding with strategic stakeholders and partners to deepen the country's fight against corruption. This has a far-reaching impact on enhancing the aspects of the ease and cost of doing business reforms. To augment this drive, the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agency speedily process investments and permits, as well as provision of timely professional guidance to investors must equally be prioritized. To further bolster this trust, my government will facilitate the use and development of ICTs to eliminate physical interface of the public and officials, which has often been the conduit for corruption. Meanwhile, allow me to take the opportunity to commend various development partners with regards to capacitating institutions that aid in the elimination of corruption. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabwe is making strides to guarantee maximum cooperation by state parties during requests for extradition and the return of stolen assets. To date, Memoranda of Understanding on cooperation in combating corruption and economic crime with Zambia and Botswana demonstrates our commitment to enhance synergies and cooperation in joint investigations, asset recovery, skills enhancement, and extradition, among other aspects. In addition, preparations for MOUs with the republics of Angola, Malawi, and South Africa are at an advanced stage. We are also amending the Criminal Matters Mutual Assistance Act to extend the scope of application of the Act while enhancing Zimbabwe's commitment to cooperate with other organizations, such as the Eastern and Southern African Money Laundering Group. Meanwhile, I welcome the decision by the Financial Action Task Force to delist Zimbabwe from the grey list. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the effects of natural disasters and COVID-19, among other shocks, must see Africa recommitting to collective action in preventing and combating corruption. As we build our adaptive capacities and continuously improve disaster and mitigation plans, let us infuse the lessons we have learned and continue to adhere to the emergency oversight mechanisms. We must never relax our safeguards in any situation, including in emergencies and disasters. We must be alive to the importance of unity, peace, and security as necessary preconditions to fight corruption, among other ills, on our mother African continent. The realization of this broader continental goal must equally inform our efforts to eradicate corruption. This is so as corruption is both a product of and fuels insecurity. Ours is now a duty and an obligation to reverse the conditions of instability, which in turn undermine and affect the work of anti-corruption agencies. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, my government will never tire to implement instruments at its disposal to achieve a corruption-free Zimbabwe. At the continental level, we remain determined to implement the provisions of the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption and other international legal instruments to which Zimbabwe is a state party. With these remarks, I wish you all and our fellow African member states and governments successful commemoration of the 6th edition of the African Anti-Corruption Day. God bless you. I thank you.
Big round of applause, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests. Thank you very much. And according to our program at this point, please be seated. Please be seated. Thank you. I will detain him a little bit further. According to our program, we are going to just toast to the first dinner in commemoration of the African Anti-Corruption Day and presentation. If I may ask our chairperson, please come through. Minister Chidao, please come through as well. If you just come through and stand right here. Our guest of honor, if you may stand here as well. I would like to ask our staff from the hotel, please come through and pop a champagne, but just make sure it doesn't spray on anybody. Please come to the stage. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, at this time I will ask our staff from the hotel to please pop the champagne. And I will ask each one of you to pour whatever is closest to you into the glasses, if there's still any, so we can all raise a glass in commemoration of this day, African Anti-Corruption Day. I noticed the staff brought 3 glasses. I guess they didn't get the memo that I'm also part of the top table. But that's okay. All right. Shall we stand and raise a glass, please? Would you like to say a few words? Or should we just toast? As we raise a glass, and of course to every African country, and of course Your Excellencies from all over the world that are here supporting this cause, we say in commemorating this day, we are fighting against corruption as African states working together, making sure that corruption is eradicated across Africa. Cheers to one, cheers to all. Cheers to Africa. To the fight against corruption across the continent of Africa. A corruption-free Africa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our guest of honor, if you may also just would like to give you a token of appreciation. Thank you. You want me to stay here or go down? No, just stay, please stay. Please come through and just, Honorable Minister, if you may just stand in the middle there so you can receive a token of appreciation. Just keep some champagne for the MC, okay? Just, I didn't get any. Just make sure. Keep a bottle. A bottle will be good. Would you like to stand right so that the pictures, please? Okay. So, presentation of gift to the guest of honor. I would like to remind the minister that he was standing in for the president. So this gift is not yours. It is for the president. Deputy Chief Charamba, please give for the president a big round of applause. Big round of applause. Thank you very much. What I do think is yours are the umbrellas. These I suspect is yours. This is yours. You can umbrellas in July. That's a perfect gift, right? What? He even has 2? No, that's corruption. Is that mine? Oh, Minister Chidao. Honorable Chidao, please. If you may come through, please. I would like to have a picture, Honorable Chidao. Yes. Yes, please come up. With your indulgence, sir. Please come up. So that it's recorded, you see. We're talking about anti-corruption. These things need to be correct. What's inside there? Let me see. There's an umbrella. We need to declare these things. These are public servants. Oh, both ministers. What are you giving them? What's in here? Cooler box. Let me see what is inside the cooler box. The people of Zimbabwe need to know. We are fighting corruption. We are not playing games here. No. Chairperson. Okay, there's a pen, notebook, cup, mug. Okay, no, this is okay. You can have this. This you can have. Sorry. And the umbrella in July. That's the best part. That's the best part. Thank you so much. I think we've declared enough. Thank you very much. Big round of applause, Your Excellencies. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Okay, and for the vote of thanks, if I may ask Commissioner, our Deputy Chairperson, Zach, Commissioner Kuziwa Murapa, to come through and give us the vote of thanks. Big round of applause, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. Let me ride on the protocols that have already been given before me, but allow me to recognize the Honorable Minister here present, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, the Minister for Harare Metropolitan Province, Engineer, I'll say his name correctly, Engineer Chidao. That's his name correctly. Let me also recognize the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, and allow me to say all protocols observed. Allow me to thank you, Honorable Minister, for coming to be the guest of honor at this occasion. The Commission would like to note with gratitude the work that your ministry has embarked on in strengthening the legal framework with which we as a Commission use in fighting against corruption. Particularly, mention should go to your recent efforts towards completion of the whistleblower and witness protection laws. We are made to understand that the Bureau is now in advanced stages of drafting. Honorable Minister, that is encouraging because, as you are aware, Zimbabwe and another country are still without this framework in much of Africa. Let me show gratitude to your attendance as this buttresses the support that government gives to the Commission. To their excellencies and heads of mission here present, the Commission regards your presence this evening with much gratitude. For the few that shared their experiences with the fight against corruption, we thank you for your words of wisdom and encouragement. As a Commission, we have learned lessons that we will use to improve our efforts in the fight against corruption. The Commission takes up offers of cooperation with your governments seriously, and the Commission appreciates these gestures. Honorable Minister, let me show our gratitude to members of Parliament here present, government ministers, senior government officials. We thank you for your support. Allow me also to appreciate development partners represented here. Your support is much appreciated. Our words of appreciation also go to all those who I have not mentioned by name. We appreciate your presence and support, and the support you give in the fight against corruption. Honorable Minister, organizing a function of this nature and this magnitude takes a lot of effort. Let me therefore acknowledge the efforts of the organizers, the Harare International Conference Center staff, and many others who have worked behind the scenes to make this a success. Let me also show gratitude to members of the media, for they are very key in sending our messages to our stakeholders. Let me conclude by wishing you all a safe drive home to your loved ones, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause. Big round of applause. Is he not getting anything? Man. Anyway, such is life. Some get, some don't, right? Thank you very much. It's been a great evening. It's been a long day. Like you said, vote of thanks has been given. My name is Maimba, and I'd like to ask our top table if they can be ushered out. Thank you very much, Our guest of honor, if you may be ushered out, please. Thank you. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. Travel safe. Godspeed. God protect you. Thank you.
Right, it's the African Anti-Corruption Day commemorations held every 11th of July in African Union Initiative, and have the privilege of being joined by the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Justice Lois Matanda-Moyo. Ma'am, a very good evening.
Very good evening to you.
Milestones, many milestones that Africa has made in the fight against corruption. This is the sixth year that we're commemorating this day. Any milestones that we can talk of in this fight?
Definitely. Africa has done well, especially in recovery of illicit financial flows and recovery of assets illegally and corruptly obtained. Africa is doing very well in that respect. And Africa is also doing very well in collaboration. The African states are coming together and they are collaborating in the fight against corruption.
That is definitely encouraging. Looking at maybe the benchmarks and as far as the legislative provisions are concerned, are we in keeping with the international and regional benchmarks as Africa and also as Zimbabwe?
Yes, as Zimbabwe, we are in keeping with the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption and also on the United Nations Convention on Anti-Corruption. We are in the process of legislating against the victimization of witnesses, and we are on course. Recently, we amended the Anti-Money Laundering Act to include unexplained wealth orders. So we are now doing civil recoveries for those assets corruptly gained. So Zimbabwe is doing a lot in terms of legislative.
It's encouraging that we've noticed that many hundreds of cases have been put forward for prosecution, and in the first quarter you did highlight that at least there was that commitment that at least half of those maybe will be cleared in as far as clearing the backlog. Are we on track?
Yes, we are on track. As I said before, 102 cases were set down and they are at various stages of prosecution. Now the National Prosecuting Authority has prioritized corruption cases, and I'm very pleased with the progress so far.
That's wonderful. I have to thank you. Enjoy your evening, madam.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm sure that was the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, Justice Lois Matanda Moyo, of course, giving us the success stories that Zimbabwe has made in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned, as well as the benchmarks when it comes to the international and regional front in the fight against corruption. Now, the fight against corruption is not a one-man fight. It involves many stakeholders, and key amongst those is the church. I'm joined right now by Bishop Neva Mparuta, who is the EFZ president. Bishop, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Wonderful. It feels good to have you here because it is in keeping, with what we say every day, that the fight against corruption, it involves me, it involves you, it involves everyone.
Yes, sir.
How important is the role of the church in the fight against corruption, and are you happy with the way Africa is progressing in that sphere?
Thank you. I'm happy, as you can see, as we are commemorating the day today. That makes anyone happy to know that we are pushing the issue of anti-corruption to the forefront, or to the headlines, or to the first page. Just that is good enough to make me happy, given the efforts that I see taking place.
Issues of value, issues of ethics. Obviously, when we come to the church, that is quite important, and obviously that is also in keeping with, corruption, whether in the positive or in the negative sense. As Africa, when it comes to our ethics, our values, do you feel we are vulnerable, more vulnerable than other nations?
Not really. I think our values actually are ahead of most nations in terms of dealing with corruption. Actually, it's the mix with other foreign values that is now beginning to come to the fore to really corrupt us in terms of going anti-corruption. Why? We value Ubuntu. We value your neighbor. Anything that disadvantages the neighbor as an African is not African. But when you see now the foreign values that are coming, where you value money more than your neighbor, where you value self-aggrandizement at the expense of the well-being of your neighbor, that is what is really beginning to mix into the pot, which is un-African. Being African is something that really pushes the issues of value. So I really think we are good. But it is now this taking of foreign values that is now beginning to mix into the pot and diluting our African values.
We've been talking about the fight against corruption being one that is an all-stakeholder approach.
if we are to be successful. Are you happy with the level of engagement when it comes to the church and your involvement in this fight?
I think there's much more to be desired when it comes to engaging the church. Why so? Because I think the church must help in terms of formulating the foundations in the fight against corruption. Why? Because we push the value. We are the ones who really formulate how people behave and watchdogs of people's behavior in general. And we are the church is most acceptable when it comes to teaching the value. So I really think what we need to do is to collaborate with the Anti-Corruption Commission here in Zimbabwe more to help augment what they're doing, they're doing a sterling job. But I think they need now the church also to be in the mix to help them really achieve what they're trying to do, because the same corrupt people that you see out there sometimes on Sundays, they're in abuse.
Coming for prayers.
And sometimes prayers to do things that you won't believe it. So I also think that the church must help by changing the kind of message that we are preaching. The Western type of gospel, the gospel that now that wants to bring people to issues of materialism, which I now begin to see creeping in the church also as church leaders. Those are kind of things that we're beginning also, for me, the kind of gospel that's being preached today is also becoming corrupt. It's corrupted gospel. So we also need to be anti-corruption in the church as a leadership.
Many thanks, Bishop Parutsa, Evangelical Fellowship of Zimbabwe President, and of course acknowledging that the church has got a role to play in as far as shaping the moral fabric is concerned.
Thank you.
Right, when fire meets fire, there's bound to be sparks.
Absolutely.
The director of ceremonies for tonight. Can you tell us about the importance of this day? 6 years on, African Union, this is an initiative that they have come up with. Anything that we can smile and be proud of this day?
Well, it's very important that the African continent, leaders of the African continent, fight corruption.
Now, corruption comes in many spheres and spaces, and of course, business is not excluded. I'm joined by the IODZ chairperson, Mr. Kundai Maukazua. It's a very good evening.
As a director, so you know your responsibility, your fiduciary responsibility, and the rights, and what you're expected to do, and what you're not expected to do. So in most cases, we have youths that are coming on board now that we promote through the youth future directors, so that we train them in terms of what corruption is, what ethical leadership is, and what good practice to practice when they're given good jobs at companies.
Certainly preparing for the future. When it comes to the regional outlook, what is your perception on the fight against corruption that Africa is making? Are there strides that we're making, especially in the sphere of business? Because we do have sectors that are problematic across, common countries in SADC as well as in Africa.
Yes, we do have actually networks that are developing, where all IODs, Institute of Directors in Africa, are actually coming together to create a network of governance. So we call that African Network of Governance, where we all discuss what's happening in our constituents in terms of developing good corporate governance practices and ethical leadership. Yes.
I was talking to the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission here, and she was talking about the issue of ill-gotten wealth, and the fact that we are starting to make strides, in getting back that wealth that is ill-gotten. We also heard from the Rwandan ambassador to Zimbabwe, Ambassador Musoni, highlighting the importance of declaring assets. Is this something, that you are hammering in your day-to-day, proceedings?
In fact, with digital transformation, we are able to now capture all the information that we need to know a profile of any director, on the continent. So with digital transformation, what it does, it helps us capture your name, your professional, your wealth, what you're doing, and how you're making money. So that, to me, is a very important thing that we are talking about at governance level. Can we digitize all the things that we have? Even with the companies that we need every digital information to be available so people can search and to know where the wealth comes from without even investigating it.
Finally, the importance of, corruption. We know there's the anti-corruption rank as an impediment or as a stimulant of foreign direct investment. Its importance in the fight.
Yes, the lesser the corruption index, in terms of less corruption activities in an economy, the more capital comes in, because capital is shy to corruption as well. Capital doesn't follow corruption. It follows where there is less corruption. So the more we do our arrangements, our capital arrangements, financing in a more ethical way, the more capitals we'll get in the economy and the more we'll grow. Yes.
Many thanks. Enjoy your evening, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, please.
Mr. Maukazua, the IOD's chairperson. No abracadabra. We will be there to make sure that we, follow the smooth progression of wealth creation. And of course, remember, this is hashtag Africa Against Corruption. It's the Africa Anti-Corruption Day commemorations, the 6th edition, right here at HICC. All right, now I'm joined by the Ambassador of the State of Palestine, Ambassador Al-Masri. A very good evening, and thank you so much, Your Excellency, for joining us this evening. Any words to leave for us right here tonight?
First of all, I am very proud of the African Anti-Corruption Day, and we highly appreciate the Zimbabwe leadership efforts to resist the corruption in the country and to build good state in its wide efforts to build the second republic. We highly appreciate the vision of 2030 that confirmed many times of the resisting the corruption, and we are sure that the people of Zimbabwe with their leadership can make the difference. Zimbabwe, I think, in the good way for to achieve the interest of the country and the nation of Zimbabwe.
Your Excellency, thank you so much. Have a good evening. All right, now I'm joined by Dr. Lamio Piri, who is the National Board Chair of the National Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, NANGO. Dr. Piri, thank you so much for joining us on this very important day. The theme this year for the African Union, the commemorations against anti-corruption, we're looking at strategies and mechanisms for the transparent management of COVID-19 funds. Beyond that, we're looking at disasters. When it comes to managing disasters, what are the glaring lessons that we can take, in as far as our responses are concerned as Africa?
I think the most glaring response is transparency. Why I'm saying transparency is because, when a disaster happens, people need to know. People need to reach the victims. Mm-hmm. People need to address the challenges. But oftentimes what we see is people tend to give little to the victims, and then most of the help is withheld. And this happens due to selfish reasons by the people on the ground. Because, for instance, here we had Cyclone Idai, mm-hmm. and I'm sure we read in the press where a car was stopped and it had a lot of goods that had been diverted mm-hmm. to another place. So we are saying...
So this theme is quite deliberate, because a time of disaster is usually known for commotion.
Exactly.
And does it expose us to corruption?
Yes, that's true. And people tend to take advantage of the situation, and then they say, well, I have a gap here, I'm going to take use of it. But you see, we need to bring in our human nature. We need to consider the plight of that person mm-hmm. and say, if I was in the shoes of that person, would it be okay if someone took away what was going to rescue me? So I think we need, first of all, we need to transparent in accounting for resources, whether they're domestic resources or international resources that are coming. Mm-hmm. They need to reach the intended beneficiary. Mm-hmm. If we can achieve that, then I think we are good.
We can close the loopholes when it comes to corruption. Okay, looking at how we approach maybe disasters as organizations, I'm just using this as an example. We seem to be more reactionary in most instances. How important is it for us to be proactive when it comes to planning, and how does that help us in the fight against corruption?
The reason why we have early warning systems is for any nation to be able to take them into consideration and be proactive. Now, what normally happens is early warning systems are not taken care of. We have them, but we don't activate them until the last minute. You see people saying, oh, now this is happening, civil department, do something about it. But, we need to be having drills, continuous drills in the prone areas, mm-hmm. so that the people who are there are themselves prepared mentally and physically all the time. But we are reactive. So we need to make use of the early warning systems. We also need to revisit the technology that our ancestors used, because they also could read these things, and they also had ways in solving when a disaster happens, how they could address them. That would help, to bring in this proactive approach. Mm-hmm. And another thing that we have is we all then move in and cause a lot of confusion. There should be proper programming in mm-hmm. terms of who's doing what, and so that there's no duplication of activities. Mm-hmm. Because with Cyclone Idai, a lot of help went to foodstuffs, yet there are certain things that were needed. Girls needed
Sanitary ware.
Yes, sanitary ware. And at the same time, the children needed books. The houses needed to be reconstructed. But
clothing.
everyone focused on
for the food.
So we need to prioritize our areas and make sure that we spread the wings and cover everything.
Dr. Phiri, I have to thank you for coming. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Lamio Phiri, who is the National Board Chair of the National Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, stressing the importance of not just an integrated approach, but also a highly coordinated approach so that we are effective in our fight against corruption and create as little loopholes as much as possible. All right, now I'm joined by Honorable Themba Mliswa, the Honorable Member of the House of Assembly for Norton Constituency. Honorable, very good evening. Thank you so much for gracing us this evening. The fight against corruption obviously is critical and it involves many stakeholders. How important is the collaborative effort, when it comes to the fight against corruption in light of this African Anti-Corruption Day and African Union initiative?
First of all, we believe as APNAC, Zimbabwe chapter, which I'm chairman of, that corruption robs us all. So really everyone is a stakeholder, so there's no longer a situation where this is a more important stakeholder than the other. Because when we say that corruption robs us all, we precisely mean that everybody must take a part. Because if something robs you, why are you not taking a part? And we believe by you being quiet, you are also aiding to corruption. And we are grateful with the initiative that the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission is taking in bringing awareness to the people. And I think they've got a different metrics, which we believe is critical to arresting corruption, where you want to prevent corruption rather than arrest corruption. So prevention is better than cure. So it's an initiative. They've got a toolkit that they've come up with, and that's part of the collaborative measures we have. The National Prosecuting Authority has got a role to play as well in terms of ensuring that the hunt that the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission brings, which is arresting, is well skinned at the end of the day. So you've got the arresting authority and the prosecuting authority, and that relationship is critical together with Zimbabwe Republic Police. So we come in supporting them and understanding very well that the Auditor General's office has reported on a number of corrupt cases which we expect them to be investigated professionally, and I think results are critical. This is in line with the vision of His Excellency. A 2030 middle income cannot happen if there are leakages, and if there's corruption, there's misgovernance, misappropriation of funds. And this is dependent on the Office of the Auditor General's office, which we cannot doubt because it is mandated to do with that. And they've done an excellent job. Now it's all of us who must say, like we say, corruption begins with you. Corruption begins with me. Corruption begins with all of us. So corruption must be fought by you. Corruption must be fought by me. Corruption must be fought by all of us. Thank you.
As a legislator, Honorable Mliswa, the legislative framework, you were mentioning all these institutions. How well are we doing in as far as plugging the loopholes are concerned, as far as the legislative framework is concerned?
To me, the ZEC bill is critical in dealing with the laws that will curb on corruption. Crime has become sophisticated, crime has become complex, and as such, you need to come up with laws that will be able to align itself to the latest mode of crime, because those criminals and those who are corrupt are a step ahead. It's a resource game. Corruption fights back too. So we need to actually come up with laws, court rules, which ensure that there's no catch and release. People talk about catch and release, but there are different parties involved. The Zimbabwe Republic Police and Anti-Corruption are there to arrest. They're not there to prosecute. The National Prosecuting Authority prosecutes, and then there's also the judiciary, which presides over matters. So these are three ties which look into corruption, and each one has a different role to play, and so forth. So it is important for people to understand that, because a lot is being blamed on the police and on ZAC that catch and release. They don't, and we've also believed that if you catch, why don't you also skin? So why don't we also give the prosecuting authority to the police and to ZAC, because they would have caught the prey. Let them skin it too, because it's now up to the presiding officer. People might argue that separation of power. But there's no separation. There is separation of power there, because when I hunt, okay, I know where I hunt and I know how to skin. But let's allow the presiding officer to then be able to make a determination on the merits of the case and so forth. So that is critical in terms of arresting corruption.
Honorable Mliswa, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Mliswa, the Honorable Member of the House of Assembly for Northern Constituency, of course, touching on the legislative framework and as well as the collaborative effort that each and every stakeholder institution has to play in this fight against corruption. The African Anti-Corruption Day commemorations are right here at the dinner at the Harare International Conference.